The quadrature alignments. We have now explored dramatic correlations between the powerful axial alignments, conjunctions, and oppositions of the precession cycle, i.e., the relationship between the winter solstice sun and the galactic rift, with watershed events in the archaeological history of humanity. After examining these in detail, I turned my attention to the 90-degree square alignments. Their addition completes the powerful quadrature sequence of aspects. Following again from Tarnas research, my hypothesis is that we might expect squares to be most strongly operative when they are within 10 degrees of exact, but may demonstrate a penumbral orb of up to 15 degrees. Precession square 1/4 cycle ago. The most recent square alignment between the solstice sun and the galactic equator before the conjunction of our own time was the remarkable period 1/4 of a precession cycle ago, close to exact in 4,431 BC, with a penumbral 15-degree orb extending from 5,510 to 3,360 BC. This profoundly pivotal time saw the beginning of the Copper Age, the development of proto-writing and writing, the domestication of the horse, the invention of the wheel, the invention of the plow, the first astronomical observatory, the megalith and stone circle explosion, and the onset of the Bronze Age. An estimate for the human population on the planet at this time, 5000 BC, is 40 million. Our earliest evidence for copper smelting comes from the Pločnik and Belovode sites in Serbia, dated between 5500 and 5000 BC. This development falls within the 15-degree penumbral orb of the precession square and marks the early beginning of the Copper or Chalcolithic Age. The mining and application of copper for weapons, farming, and other tools and implements, the first metal to be widely used, constituted a powerful leap in human technology. Also from this period, the earliest known human artifact made from gold is a 15 centigram gold bead discovered at Yunatsite, Bulgaria, and dated at 4600 to 4500 BC, very close to the exact precession square. The next major advance in metallurgy occurred sometime between 3500 and 3300 BC, when the Sumerians in southern Mesopotamia made the consequential discovery that adding tin to copper during the process of smelting created bronze, a substance which was much harder and more durable than copper. It was also easier to cast into longer weapons and other complex shapes. This marked the early onset of the Bronze Age, as bronze implements replaced those of copper for making tools and weapons. Hunting and farming became more effective, leading to surpluses of food which could support greater numbers of people in larger urban centers and ever more complex societies. Bronze swords, axes, and daggers, which can maintain a very sharp edge, were highly prized and helped to create an elite warrior class which could afford the more lethal and durable bronze weapons. This is thought to be one of the factors leading to increased social stratification of this period. The development of proto-writing and writing was a deeply emancipatory theme that unfolded during the precession square, which reflected a major leap in human intellectual development. Dated around 4500 BC, the Vinca symbols found at the settlement sites of Vinca in modern-day Serbia and Turdaş in Romania are the first clear, undisputed examples of human proto-writing. The timing is extremely close, within 1 degree of the exact square alignment of 4431 BC. Even older symbols found on clay tablets at the site of Tartaria could originate from as early as 5300 BC, though their dating is considered controversial. The next quantum leap in this process was the famous Kish tablet of 3500 BC, or possibly slightly later, a date which falls within the 15-degree penumbral orb of the precession square. This limestone tablet of pictographic early cuneiform, which was discovered at Kish in modern-day Iraq, is considered the first known example of human writing, though it has not been successfully translated. 3500 BC is also the earliest date proposed for the still undeciphered Indus script. The invention of the wheel was another quantum leap in human cultural and technological development. The earliest known depictions of a wheeled vehicle can be seen on the Bronocice pot discovered in modern-day Poland, as well as on pottery from Uruk, Sumer in modern-day Iraq. Dated about 3500 BC, this invention occurred near the end of, but still well within, the 15-degree orb of the precession square. Wheeled carts and wagons enabled people to carry large quantities of goods for long distances, greatly broadening the range of trade networks and cross-pollination of cultures. Perhaps just preceding this invention, the potter's wheel is also believed to have emerged in Sumer about 3500 BC. In several other developments, the earliest evidence of the plow comes from Bubenek in the Czech Republic, dated between 3500 and 3800 BC. The estimated construction of the first known three-story building, built by the Kukatini Tripilia culture in what is now Ukraine, is 3700 BC. The Maidennet settlement in Ukraine during this period is thought to have been home to between 12,000 to 46,000 people in over 3,000 homes, the most populous city in the world at this time. Another notable development during the period of the precession square is the oldest anthropogenically modified mummy found in Arica, Chile, and dated at 5050 BC, over 2,000 years before the first Egyptian mummies. Mummification suggests a stage in human consciousness associated with increasing fear of death and desire to preserve the body and ego. The earliest known pyramidal structure, the Anu Ziggurat, built about 4000 BC in Uruk, Sumer, also predates by almost 1400 years the first pyramids in Egypt. It is believed that the Egyptian pyramids were elaborations of these much earlier temples from Sumer. The magnificent white temple in Sumer was added to the Anu Ziggurat sometime close to 3500 BC. Dedicated to the god Anu, or heaven, the temple was a site of religious rituals which were thought to unite humanity with the divine. The year 4242 BC is also thought to be the first year of the Egyptian calendar, a date which falls within 3 degrees of the exact precession square of 4431 BC. The earliest possible domestication of the horse in what is now Ukraine and other steppelands north of the Black Sea is estimated around or before 4000 BC, and dated around 3500 BC, still within the 15-degree orb of the precession square. The early Minoan culture began on Crete. Evidence for humanity's growing interest in celestial observation was found at the North African site of Nabta Playa, sometimes referred to as the Stonehenge in the Sahara. Dated at 4800 BC, this correlation falls very close to, within 5 degrees of the exact square alignment of 4431 BC. Nabta Playa is possibly the world's oldest astronomical observatory. Key stones seem to have been aligned to the summer solstice and onset of the summer monsoons. Archaeoastronomical analysis also suggests that key parts of the stone circle may have been originally aligned to the stars Sirius, Arcturus, and Alpha Centauri. The final profound development during the time of the precession square was the explosion of stone circle and megalith construction in Europe, along primarily the coasts of the Mediterranean and Atlantic. Beginning around 4700 BC, within a tight 4 degrees from the exact precession square of 4431 BC, this surge would continue for another 2,000 years to create 35,000 megaliths. The giant stone circles and megaliths can be seen as evidence of powerful shared religious feelings in our ancestors, similar to that of the dramatic stone circles erected in the Fertile Crescent during the immediately preceding precession opposition, as we have seen, as well as to the cathedral building fervor in Europe of the Middle Ages, in which every cathedral was devoted to Mary. They also indicate a burgeoning passion for astronomy and astrology. Some of the most important stones were aligned to cycles of the moon, earlier dates, and the sun, later dates. The impassioned construction of these circular temples and rows of stones erected during the precession square suggests a time of intense spiritual enthusiasm in the collective psyche. It may also be seen in some ways as one last impassioned celebration of the eternal rounds of Mother Nature and our primal immersion in the natural world, the circles, as well as profound yearnings for vertical transcendence, the upright stones. These formations also represent a powerful honoring and celebration of the medium out of which many human tools have been made for millions of years, stone. This was the substance that formed the very basis of the 2.5 million year long Stone Age, a period which was just ending. The spiritual and creative euphoria of the stone circles emerged just before the onset of the patriarchal era, with its challenges of increasing population, ongoing competition, and escalating warfare. These pressures would drive human evolution forward at an accelerating speed in the millennia ahead, toward a far distant but deeply yearned for omega point of peaceful coexistence and higher meaning for our species. Precession square 3/4 of a cycle ago. After looking at these watershed events which occurred during the precession square just preceding the conjunction of our own time, I was curious to examine the period of the square alignment from 3/4 of a cycle ago. This was the midway point between the opposition of the agricultural revolution half a cycle ago and the conjunction during the first permanent human settlement 1 cycle ago. The period around 18,000 BC is considered the onset of the Epi-Paleolithic era in the Levant, in what is now Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, and Syria. Nomadic hunter-gatherers began to make more advanced tools from splint and obsidian blades, which were hafted in wooden implements. 18,000 to 17,000 BC also coincides with the earliest evidence of pottery used for cooking, as opposed to making figurines, discovered in the Shanrendong cave in southeast China. It is thought that these clay vessels might have been used to boil snails and clams. The extreme cold of the Ice Age and resulting food shortages may have prompted the transition to cooked food, which delivers more energy than raw food. And finally, the earliest known atlatl, or spear thrower, made of a reindeer antler, was found at Combe-Sanière cave near Dordogne, France. Dated at 15,500 BC or earlier, this correlation is also somewhat close but not exact. It is also possible that spear throwers may be much older in origin. The next period I looked at was during the square, which came into alignment 1.25 precession cycles ago, exact in 30,203 BC. These rich millennia coincided with heightened creative activity of our cultural ancestors across Europe and the earliest known map of the stars. 31,000 BC is considered the early beginning of the Gravettian period of modern humans in Europe. There is evidence of burgeoning, widespread use of plant fibers to make baby carriers, clothes, bags, baskets, and nets. Innovative fish hooks and awls, as well as tools made from animal teeth and bones, were common in this period. In another development, the first of the famous animal murals painted in the Chauvet cave in France is dated at about 30,900 BC, within the tight 10-degree orb of the square, with most of the paintings determined to be from the period 30,000 to 28,000 BC. Finally, the world's oldest possible star map of Orion the Hunter is estimated at 30,000 BC, within 3 degrees of the exact precession square. This tusk fragment with carvings on both sides was found in the Geisenklusterle cave near Ulm, Germany. Precession square 1.75 cycles ago. After these discoveries, I was curious to look at the seminal period spanning the millennia 44,000 to 42,000 BC, which gave birth to the first known cave paintings of Homo sapiens. I found that these important works were created during the precession square of 44,165 to 42,020 BC, which was exact in 43,089 BC. 43,500 BC is the date determined for the earliest representational art of humanity and the first ever that depicts animals, which are warty pigs. These watershed paintings, created with dark red ochre pigment, were found in the Liang Tedong cave on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi. Precession square 2.25 cycles ago. A recent discovery places the first Homo sapiens in Europe, Cro-Magnons, as early as 54,800 BC. Found in a rock shelter known as the Grotte Mondrian in the Rhone River Valley, these fossils push back the date of the first modern humans in Europe by 10,000 years. There is also evidence of Neanderthals living in the shelter, with various layers suggesting that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals occupied the site at different times, replacing each other for several cycles until the Neanderthals disappeared or were blended into modern humanity. These discoveries possibly coincide with the precession square of 2.25 cycles ago, though the date of 54,800 falls 1 degree late of the 15-degree orb of the square. The square was exact in 55,975 BC, with a penumbral 15-degree orb of 57,050 to 54,900 BC. Another recent discovery may place members of Homo sapiens in Greece as early as 208,000 BC, though the exact dating remains uncertain. This could coincide with the precession square of 211,320 to 209,891 BC, but the dating estimate is not accurate enough to evaluate a correlation in this study. Precession square 2.75 cycles ago. Following these discoveries, I was curious to look at the square which occurred 2.75 cycles ago. I found that the earliest use of heat-treated mixed compound gluing from the Sibutu cave in South Africa is estimated around 68,000 BC. The complexity of the glue's creation and processing is evidence of a burgeoning advanced cognition. In another development, the earliest known abstract or symbolic art of Homo sapiens was discovered in the Blombos cave in South Africa from 68,000 BC. These stones engraved with crosshatch grid patterns are considered strong evidence of a growing modernity in human consciousness and behavior. Blombos cave in South Africa has been called the cradle of human culture. Idyllically situated near the edge of the Indian Ocean, our ancestors who lived there left a treasure trove of unique artifacts. Important finds include shell beads, engraved ochre, and the earliest drawing of Homo sapiens, as we have seen. Humans visited Blombos cave repeatedly between about 101,000 to 70,000 years ago. It is thus interesting to note that the first abstract symbolic art of humanity emerged during the precession square of 2.75 cycles ago, 68,000 BC, in the Blombos cave of South Africa. The earliest known cave painting emerges from the opposition 2.5 cycles ago, 62,000 BC, in the Maltraviesco cave in Spain. The first cave artwork, which depicts animals, is dated during the square of 1.75 cycles ago, 43,500 BC, in the Liang Tadong cave in Indonesia, and the earliest carved figurative art of humanity may coincide with the opposition of 1.5 cycles ago in the Hohenstein-Stadtel cave in Germany, but the dating of that art is not accurate enough to know. In the next section, we will look at several of the octature alignments and important archaeological correlations with them.